Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Keeper of the Home podcast. I'm so glad to have you here today. My name is Cami. I am the creator of the blog and YouTube channel TIDBITS Company. And if you haven't visited me over there as well, I would love to have you join me. Now, today on the podcast, I want to share with you some lessons I have learned watching Mr. TIDBITS become a homemaker. So if you have been with me for a while, you already know that in the last year, we have actually retired my husband, Kevin, whom we lovingly call Mr. TIDBITS. We retired him from his 9-to-5 desk job as an engineer that he had for over 15 years. And it was a hard decision and a major leap of faith to bring him home to help me with this business, to run our homestead, and also start some of his own businesses that he's been dreaming of doing. Now, in that time, he has also taken on a lot of the homemaking and housekeeping work that I typically did pretty much by myself for 17 years. So it's been very interesting to see him step into this role with me and observe how he does things a bit differently than perhaps I've done my whole life, and to see how his personality and experience as an engineer has kind of woven into the way he runs a home. It's been extremely fascinating and enlightening for me to watch, and I thought I would share some of the things that I've learned in doing so. But first, I have a few housekeeping items to cover with you. So it is, or should be, the final week of September by the time this podcast goes live, and September is Emergency Preparedness Awareness Month. How have you been doing? Have you done or been able to do something in your home to help you be a little more prepared in case of an emergency? This week, I want to encourage you to look at your cars and see if you have materials in there that would help you be prepared for an emergency while you're out and about and in the car, or maybe you even need to get in the car and evacuate quickly. So definitely look at your car and make sure you have some things in the event of an emergency. And what we have done, we've actually compiled car emergency kits for each one of our vehicles. And I have to tell you, they probably get used more than any of the emergency preparation that we have done around our home. And I think that's because the things that you're putting in the car, they're very practical and come in handy a lot, whether you need a hammer, whether you're out and about or at a soccer game and your kids are hungry and you have some snacks stored in the car. Anyway, I think it is a very wise decision to stock up your vehicle with things. I mean, can you imagine if you're stranded with a lot of kids, especially in your car, or you're stranded for hours by yourself? You are going to need some supplies. Now, if you're wondering, well, then what do you put in there? Don't worry, I've got you covered. We have thoroughly thought this out, studied a lot of resources, and experienced a lot of things out and about in our car when we've come into these sort of situations. So in our emergency preparedness evacuation class over on my TIDBITS Company shop, there is actually a video and printables to go with it all about compiling an emergency kit for your car. So another great benefit of that class, we have an entire purchase list for you, checklists, and paperwork that you're going to want to have filled out and stored in your car. So really, really important. And I really hope you take the opportunity to do this thing and make sure that your family is prepared while on the go for whatever may come. Also, September is a big time of the year for planners. A lot of planners are launching, gearing up for the new year that is inevitably coming. Lots of things need to get put on the calendar for next year. So I have also released the TIDBITS Day Planner. This year looks a little bit differently. If you've purchased a planner from me in the past few years, because of the inflated costs of everything last year, it really hurt this little business of mine. And so all I'm able to do this year is the printable version. However, the printable version is pretty awesome, and I've got some great ideas how you can print it out really affordably and bind it really affordably, or maybe you want fancy binding. I have some ideas and options for you. So head over to tidbitsandcompany.com, click over to my shop page, and find out the details of the new 2024 Tidbits Day Planner. That just sounds weird. I can't believe we're here already. Anyway, check that out. And then I just want to make sure you're aware that you can always sign up for my newsletter to get a weekly update on all the content that I'm publishing. I usually publish a podcast, a YouTube video, and a blog post or two a week. And there's also new product releases that happen occasionally. So please check the description or the show notes and find the link where you can sign up for my newsletter so you don't miss a beat. Thank you so much for joining me, supporting me, blessing my family, and in return, I hope to do the same for you. Okay, let's get into what Mr. Tidbits has taught me while I've watched him step into the role of a homemaker with me. So the first lesson that was obviously apparent from the get-go that I really had to adapt to was that he taught me that everything doesn't have to be clean or in perfect order to just get started on something. And what I mean by that is, I don't know, maybe it's a personality trait, maybe it's a gender thing, maybe it's the fact that he's an engineer and minded logically like that, and I'm the creative soul that I am. Anyway, I would watch him constantly just jump into things that needed to get done while there was maybe mess on the side. Now, what I like to do is I need all my ducks in a row before I get started on something else, for better or for worse. Are you the same way? And I just, like, even at the beginning of the day, I can't get going on work or homeschool with the kids unless the dishes are done, everything's put away, and I just feel like I need that order in my life. However, as I watched him kind of take over a lot of the morning tasks, like some of the homeschool with the kids, and of course the projects that he had on his docket for the day, I just saw him jump right in. And at first I would get really anxious and be like, no, we need to get the dishes done before we can do anything else. And he'd be like, well, why? And I would just tell him, well, it just makes me feel better. And he's like, I will get that done, but I'm going to get the kids started on their homeschool and then do that while they're doing it. He just had a different process and a way to think, to get things done. And I think he learned that in his many years in the workplace as an engineer, that a lot of times you have what you got to do that day and you just got to do it. And it doesn't really benefit you to stall by making sure everything's perfectly perfect before you get into that. And what I noticed was, yeah, he would jump in and maybe get the kids going on homeschool, maybe work on a project, and then come back to the dishes or whatever needed to be tidied up or put in order for the day. And the most amazing thing happened. By the end of the day, it was all done and accomplished, and it was just a different way to get to the point where we needed to be at the end of a day. And I learned a lot by doing that. I wouldn't say I've changed my ways. I still like to put some of my ducks in a row. However, there are multiple ways to do things, and nothing has to be just right before you can start diving into something else. So in essence, it's helped me let go of a little bit of perfection and just get going. And it's just amazing to see that both ways work. Now, the second thing that Mr. Tidbits has taught me as I've watched him become a homemaker is that planning might actually be stopping my progress. I can't believe I just said that out loud and admitted it. But I have the tendency to get really hung up on my plans. And as you know, because I just told you, I am a major planner. I create a planner. I've created the planning pages that help me function best and help many others function and adapt to their unique lives and stages of lives. And I've really thought out a lot of planning. And I suppose out of necessity, I have become a planner because there are multiple roles and responsibilities and things I need to do in a day that I just got too overwhelmed if I didn't have a plan. But I think what has happened through the years is I've let planning almost become a roadblock for me in the fact that I get a little too obsessive about the planning and less intentional about the doing. So I know this point is very similar to my first point. However, instead of just, cleanliness, this is the planning that is actually stopping me. And what has happened is when maybe say we're about to begin like a house project, I see Kevin just jump in and he'll start maybe tearing things apart or taking things out. And I want to just instantly just say, hold up, we haven't planned this. We need to work out the details. We need to make sure we have all the products ordered before we get started. We need, again, all our ducks in a row. And he's just like, well, why? I can get this going now. And then we can work that out as it comes. It's just a different process and a way of thinking that I think he has just had to adapt to as an engineer. And what has actually happened is I see him get a lot of stuff done. And we don't have to have all the details lined up just perfectly to get started and to make progress quickly. And in fact, I think a lot of maybe the projects I want to get done or the things I want to tackle end up not happening because I sit down to plan them and then they start to feel really heavy or daunting. And then they don't happen, or they don't happen as quickly because I really get hung up on having to have all the details worked out. Another example that I've seen this in him work out really well is he often just gets animals for our homestead without really being perfectly prepared for them. I don't know if that's a super great trait, but he gets the animals, figures out temporary situations, and then works out, maybe better fencing and whatnot, and more convenient ways to feed them and methods to take care of them. But all that stuff isn't just perfectly put in place before he gets them. Now, it would probably function a little better and perhaps be a little less stressful at times if all that stuff was worked out. But I do have the feeling that if we waited till all the details were perfectly planned, a lot of the things on our homestead just wouldn't have happened. So he just kind of jumps in with both feet and then figures it out. And it's just a different way to do things that has actually helped me let go of the need to plan. And I've witnessed myself getting more things done. An example is this podcast. I've been wanting to start one for a long time, but I just felt like, I've got to learn all the right gear. I've got to learn this. I've got to do this. I need to maybe test things. And then I just decided, you know what? Let's do the Mr. Tidbits way and just jump in. And here we are, several episodes in, and I started, and I'm going to work out and get better as I go. But if I would have just been stuck on the planning and envisioning what it should be, I probably never would have started. So it's a very interesting thing to learn and experiment if you also have my personality and really want things just right before you begin anything. Try letting go of some of that and seeing what happens with your progress. I've also seen this benefit him if he's going to try something new, like canning a new food that we've never canned before and preserved, or growing something. I wanted to get like the garden plot perfectly planned out before we put anything in ground. I want to make sure I've read and studied all the things about this food preservation that we're just doing for the first time. And then while I'm kind of obsessing over all these details, he just goes. He puts seed in the ground, he gets a packet, throws it in, it grows. We have a bountiful garden, and it just happened. Whereas if I would have done my way, I probably would still be planning the perfect dream garden and not actually planning it, not actually preserving the food because I was worried I wasn't doing it wrong or worried that it wasn't all perfectly planned out to the minute. So anyway, a very important thing that I've been learning and has been really helpful for my progress as a business and personally as well. Okay, the third thing that I've learned watching Mr. Tidbits via Homemaker is that it often looks worse than it is. Meaning the situation or the project or the mess in front of us is actually not that bad if we just push up our sleeves and get going on it. So I have a tendency to maybe see the house falling out of order quickly and feeling like, oh, I'm gonna need an entire day to put this place back in order, and it overwhelms me because what working mother has an entire day to just clean the house? It is a very rare occurrence, and usually I'm neglecting a lot of other things if I'm doing that. So when I see mess piling up in our home, I get pretty overwhelmed, and he has just taught me to look at this like, this mess isn't really that bad. If we take a half an hour and work together, it's going to be clean and it'll be just fine. Calm down, Cami. It's usually how this goes. Or likewise for projects around the house. For example, the porch that we are working on and just about wrapping up. I just got so overwhelmed by the many, many projects that we had to do. Whereas he just assured me, like, it's not that bad. No, that won't be a problem. No, I can handle that. No, that'll take just a day. It'll be fine. So he has really taught me to stop freaking out over the mess, stop worrying about the task at hand, and it's really not going to be as bad as I'm thinking it will be if I just get going and doing it. So really, he's taught me to breathe and relax a little, which has been a very good lesson for me as the homemaker. Let's move on to the fourth thing that I've been learning from Mr. Tidbits, and that is there is incredible beauty in the mess. And again, going back to the garden, it grew so well this year. It's so lush, but it doesn't really have that tidy order that I crave. However, when we go out there in the garden together, he looks around and he just says, this is so beautiful. I just love the garden. And he is thrilled with the overgrown squash that is taking over other plants. And it's like this jungle and he loves it. And it has helped me just step back and open my eyes and appreciate the messy situations of our lives and to look for the beauty in it and to look for the growth. There is actually so much growth happening in the messy parts of life. And I think that's a really valuable thing for all of us to learn and a skill for us to try to cultivate so that no matter how messy life gets, we can still see and experience growth and beauty. Okay, I have one more lesson from Mr. Tidbits for you, and that is when your family needs fun and connection, it's time to drop everything and do it. I feel like maybe this is a man thing. Maybe they're just better at this than most of us women. I want to say it's definitely not for every situation, but he is just so much better at lightening up and having fun. And I am so grateful he has that personality because I have a tendency to just want to work and want to get things done, but he teaches me to lighten up. And when you see that your kids need a break, when you need a break, when you need to connect to your family or to friends, drop it. Drop the workload, drop the responsibilities, and just go do that. Now, of course, there's balance in all things. We can't always play and just have fun. But for someone who has a tendency to just want to check off that to-do list, it can be hard to allow those things in our lives. So having him home more has really blessed my life in the fact that I'm able to just try to live more in the moment, try to make the daily tasks more enjoyable, and allow us as a family to connect more and have a little more fun. And here are some practical ways I see him doing this. He is so open and ready to get out a board game and play with the kids. That's a great way to connect and so easy and enjoyable for him and for everyone. But I have a tendency to feel like it's a waste of time. However, he is more than willing when the kids come to him and want to play a board game to sit down and do that with them, and they have such a good time. It's taught me a lot about just allowing those things that the kids want to do to have fun with us and not telling them, oh, we'll do that another time, or I can't do that right now. Just take 10, 15 minutes, play a card game with them and laugh and enjoy the day. He's also a lot better at wanting to invite people over, or when extended family or friends invite us to something, to just say, yeah, we're going to do that. Sometimes I don't feel like being super social. Sometimes I feel like my workload is too heavy to allow for that. But it's not a waste of time for him. He thinks it's just the most valuable way to spend your life, and he doesn't turn down an invitation. And I've really appreciated seeing more of that and allowing more of that in my life. He even has opened up more of our homeschool to this sort of stuff. So if there's like a homeschool group that wants to get together to play ultimate frisbee or baseball, it's not even debatable for him. It's a close the books day and go and be active and play with other people and have a good time. Because for him, there is no better use of your time than doing something like that. Of course, that doesn't mean you do that every day. Of course, we open our books and study, but to see him so readily take those opportunities when they come has really taught me to just live in the moment and have more fun. Well, my friend, I hope my observations of Mr. TIDBITS as a homemaker has inspired you as well. Perhaps we struggle with the same things, and perhaps he can teach us all a little more. I think it would actually be fun to get him on here on this podcast at some point and kind of give us a peek into his brain of why he does these things differently. And maybe he should do a podcast about what he's learned from me as a homemaker. I'm sure there's those things as well. Anyway, thanks for joining me today, and I will be back very soon to share more inspiration for the keeper of the home.